What if the reason you keep breaking your daily goals isn't because you are weak, but because you never learned the real psychology of consistency? What if your potential has been waiting behind one simple shift you haven't made yet? Today, I want to shake you awake, not with fear, but with the truth that consistency is not a talent. It's a decision repeated daily, even when your motivation has evaporated. You already know how to dream. What you need now is the discipline to return to those dreams every single day. And to do that, you must understand something most people never talk about: the emotional friction that lives between your intention and your action. Consistency doesn't start with strength, it starts with honesty. The honesty to admit that you've been negotiating with your excuses for far too long. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," you feed a pattern that becomes nearly impossible to break. But today I'm asking you to try something different. Instead of chasing massive change, chase the small, unglamorous actions that build your identity. Because consistency isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters with relentless repetition. Think about the moments in your life when you surprised yourself. Maybe it was staying committed to something for weeks longer than you thought possible. That wasn't luck. That was alignment. Alignment between who you said you wanted to be and what you actually did. And the more you nurture that alignment, the easier consistency becomes. Not because life gets simpler, but because your standards get higher. So here's the hook, the truth people rarely say out loud: you don't need more motivation. You need a system that makes backsliding impossible. A system built on clarity, commitment, and accountability. Over the next moments, I'll show you the 5 ways to lock in your daily goals so tightly that consistency stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like who you are becoming. This begins right now. And before you take another step, breathe for a moment and recognize that everything you want depends on the habits you repeat. Not once, not twice, but daily. Imagine the version of yourself 6 months from now, more focused, more disciplined, more grounded. That person is not built by chance. They are built by the decisions you make today, the ones that feel small and insignificant. But those decisions compound. They gather momentum. They reshape your identity one action at a time. So let this moment be the line you draw in the sand. A promise to yourself that consistency begins with clarity, and clarity begins with understanding why your goals matter more than your comfort. Most people fail not because they lack skill, but because they never build a compelling emotional reason to return to their goals when motivation fades. When your why is weak, discipline collapses. But when your why is strong, everything changes. You stop relying on excitement and start relying on identity. You shift from wanting to act to needing to act because not doing it feels out of alignment with who you are becoming. This is the first real key to staying consistent every day. Think of a moment when you felt deeply committed to something, a promise to yourself you refused to break. You didn't keep it because it was convenient, you kept it because it mattered. That same emotional anchor must be tied to your daily goals. Without that connection, consistency becomes optional. So here's a simple but powerful exercise. Ask yourself, what does my future self desperately need from me today? Not want, need. When you frame your actions as a responsibility to the person you are becoming, procrastination loses its power. You begin acting out of duty, not desire, and duty is far more reliable. The second part of staying consistent is reducing friction. Most people design their goals like obstacles. They make the process harder than it needs to be. If it takes you 20 steps to begin, you won't. Make your habits obvious, accessible, and nearly unavoidable. Lowering friction increases follow-through. Set your environment so your goals greet you the moment you wake. If you want to write, open your document the night before. If you want to exercise, lay out your clothes where you can't ignore them. Consistency becomes easier when your environment works for you instead of against you. And here's the truth most people overlook: willpower is unreliable, but structure is unbreakable. You don't rise to your motivation, you fall to your systems. Build systems that make the right action the default choice. When the path of least resistance leads toward your goals, you stop fighting yourself. Remember, daily goals aren't boxes to check, they are proofs of who you're becoming. Every action is a vote for your future. And when enough votes accumulate, identity shifts. Consistency stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural, inevitable. If you want to master consistency, you must learn the difference between intention and execution, because these two forces rarely move in harmony. True growth happens when you stop assuming that desire alone will carry you forward and start building the internal discipline required to show up every day. Intention feels inspiring, but execution feels uncomfortable. And that discomfort is where most people quit. They mistake discomfort for misalignment, when in reality it is the gateway to transformation. Every great achievement in your life was born from a moment when you pushed through resistance rather than surrendering to it. Resistance is not a sign to stop, it is a sign you are moving in the right direction. The mind prefers familiarity, even when familiarity keeps you stuck. So when you try to change, your mind fights back, not because you're wrong, but because you're stretching beyond what it knows. Consistency is built in these moments, the small victories over your own hesitation. To strengthen your ability to follow through, you must embrace micro wins. These are the tiny decisions that seem insignificant yet shape your entire identity. When you choose to act for 2 minutes instead of doing nothing at all, you reinforce a powerful message. I am someone who shows up. And that identity matters more than the scale of your actions. Small steps compound just like small neglects do. You are always moving toward a version of yourself. The question is which one? Another essential shift is learning to honor your commitments privately, not just publicly. Anyone can follow through when others are watching. Real consistency is built in the hidden moments. The mornings when no one knows if you succeeded or quit, the quiet evenings when skipping your goal would be easier than forcing yourself to follow through. The integrity you build in private shapes the strength you show in public. When you consistently choose discipline over comfort, you create a sense of internal trust that fuels long-term growth. Finally, recognize that consistency is not perfection. It is resilience. It is returning to your goals after setbacks instead of letting one missed day spiral into a lost week. Progress is the result of returning more quickly each time you fall. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses its power, and daily goals become a natural extension of who you are becoming. This is how momentum is built through deliberate repetition, honest reflection, and the courage to continue when comfort tempts you to stop. Stay committed to the smallest actions, and they will eventually unlock the greatest transformations within you today. Consistency grows strongest when you learn to build momentum intentionally, rather than waiting for motivation to appear. Most people approach their goals like a sprint, burning bright for a few days and then collapsing under the weight of their own expectations. But real growth is not born in intensity, it is born in rhythm. Rhythm is the heartbeat of consistency, the steady repetition of meaningful actions that eventually becomes an unbreakable habit. When you master rhythm, you stop chasing motivation and start creating motion, a force far more reliable and far more powerful than any temporary burst of excitement. Momentum begins with the first honest action, no matter how small. The mind loves to complicate progress, convincing you that every step must be massive to matter. But momentum does not need dramatic victories. It needs direction. A single meaningful step in the right direction creates a psychological shift. It tells your mind that movement is possible, that progress is happening, you are capable. And once you feel capable, you become unstoppable. Small actions unlock larger actions because confidence grows from completion, not from perfection. Another key to building momentum is removing hidden drains, those subtle habits, distractions, and unnecessary decisions that steal your energy without you realizing it. You cannot move forward when you are constantly leaking focus. So identify the moments that pull you off track. Maybe it's picking up your phone the moment you wake. Maybe it's telling yourself you'll start later. Eliminate these drains. Replace them with rituals that signal movement. Rituals transform your mindset from passive to active, from drifting to driving. Momentum also requires emotional flexibility. You will not feel the same every day, and that is completely normal. The mistake people make is assuming consistency requires identical energy, identical enthusiasm, identical conditions. It doesn't. Consistency only requires one thing: showing up with whatever you have. Some days you will give 100%, other days you will give 20%. But 20% effort is infinitely more powerful than zero because it keeps the chain unbroken and the identity intact. Finally, momentum thrives when you celebrate progress, not perfection. Recognize the days you follow through even when it was hard. Acknowledge the effort, not the outcome. When your brain associates your actions with reward, consistency becomes easier. You begin to crave the feeling of follow-through, the pride of honoring your word. As this feeling grows, the distance between who you are and who you want to be becomes smaller. Momentum becomes your ally, carrying you forward even on the days you doubt yourself. Consistency becomes unshakable when you learn to manage your emotions instead of letting your emotions manage you. Most people break their daily goals not because the goals are too hard, but because their feelings fluctuate. They wait to feel ready, inspired, or confident before taking action, not realizing that feelings are the most unreliable foundation for building anything meaningful. If you only act when you feel good, you will never achieve anything great. True consistency begins when you decide that your actions are not negotiable, no matter what your emotions say in the moment. Think about the days when you woke up tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, yet still followed through on something important. Those days shaped you more than any day when everything felt easy. That is because discipline built in emotional resistance becomes permanent. It creates a new internal standard. I do what I said I will do, regardless. When you operate from this mindset, emotions become background noise rather than dictators of your behavior. You reclaim control of your life. One powerful strategy is emotional naming. Instead of letting a feeling control your behavior, identify it. Say to yourself, I'm anxious, or I'm unmotivated, or I'm overwhelmed. This simple act separates you from the emotion. It reminds you that you are experiencing a feeling, not becoming it. Once you recognize it, you can act in spite of it. And acting in spite of emotion is one of the highest forms of consistency. Another tool is emotional reframing. When a task feels difficult, most people tell themselves a story that makes it feel even heavier. They say, this is too much, or I can't do this right now. But if you reframe the moment by saying, this action moves me closer to who I want to be, your brain changes its interpretation. The task no longer feels like a burden. It becomes a step toward your identity. And identity-driven action is far more sustainable than motivation-driven action. You must also learn to create emotional anchors. These are reminders that reconnect you to your purpose during moments of resistance. A sentence, a memory, a vision, a feeling, something that pulls you back to your commitment. When resistance rises, your anchor grounds you. You stop spiraling into excuses and return to intention. Finally, remember this: emotions will always fluctuate, but your standards do not have to. When your actions remain steady through emotional storms, you develop a level of self-respect that cannot be shaken. And from that self-respect grows a consistency so strong that nothing can derail it. Because you no longer follow your feelings, you lead them. Consistency becomes far more achievable when you understand that progress is not built on willpower alone. It is built on structure. Structure is the invisible architecture of success, the framework that carries you on days when your energy is low, your motivation disappears, or your mind becomes filled with doubt. Without structure, even the most passionate goals collapse under pressure. But with the right structure, you create a path so clear, so intentional, that following it becomes almost automatic. This is where consistency stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a rhythm you naturally fall into. The first part of structure is routine. Not a boring, rigid schedule, but a supportive rhythm that sets the tone for your day. The mind loves patterns, it thrives on predictability. When you begin your mornings with purposeful actions, no matter how small, you send a powerful signal to your brain. This is who I am. Morning structure eliminates hesitation and creates momentum before excuses appear. Even a simple ritual like 5 minutes of planning or 2 minutes of breathing can shift your entire mindset and make your goals feel more attainable. Next is planning. Planning is not about controlling every minute, it's about removing decision fatigue. Every decision you make drains mental energy. When you plan your tasks the night before, you begin the next day with clarity, not confusion. Clarity fuels consistency because it eliminates the friction that often stops people before they even begin. Think of planning as pre-commitment, a promise you make in advance so your future self doesn't have to negotiate with laziness or hesitation. Systems also matter deeply. Systems are the automated habits and processes that carry you forward even when you're tired. If your goal is fitness, create a system that makes missing a workout difficult. If your goal is learning, create a system that triggers study time at the same hour each day. Systems turn actions into defaults rather than choices, and that distinction is everything. Choice leads to negotiation, systems lead to execution. Another part of structure is accountability. Not external pressure, but internal alignment. When you track your progress, small wins, daily check marks, even simple logs, you create a sense of responsibility that strengthens your identity. Tracking keeps your goals visible, real, and alive. What you measure improves because measurement builds awareness, and awareness builds intention. Finally, structure includes boundaries. Protect your focus the same way you protect your time. Say no to distractions that pull you away from purpose. Say no to habits that weaken your discipline. Say no to environments that drain your energy. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. When you create structure built on routines, systems, planning, tracking, and boundaries, consistency stops feeling like something you chase and becomes something you embody. This is the foundation that transforms daily goals into lasting results. Consistency reaches its highest level when you learn to remove the silent battles happening inside your mind, those invisible negotiations that slowly drain your discipline without you even noticing. Every day, you face a series of internal conversations. Should I start now or later? Do I really need to do this today? One missed day won't matter. These micro-negotiations are the true enemies of consistency. They seem small, harmless, almost logical, but every time you give into one of them, you strengthen the voice that pulls you away from your goals. And every time you refuse to negotiate, you strengthen the voice that pulls you toward your future. Mastering this inner conflict is one of the most powerful ways to stay consistent with your daily goals. The first step is awareness. Most people operate on autopilot, unaware of how many times their mind tries to bargain its way into comfort. The moment you become conscious of these internal negotiations, you gain the power to interrupt them. You begin to realize that hesitation isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of choice. And within that choice lies the opportunity to take control instead of falling into the familiar trap of delay. The second step is creating non-negotiables. A non-negotiable is a commitment you refuse to question. It removes the mental debate entirely. For example, instead of saying, "I'll try to read today," you say, "I read for 10 minutes every day." Instead of saying, "I'll try to exercise," you say, "I move my body daily, no exceptions." When you create non-negotiables, discipline becomes simpler because the decision is made before the moment arises. Your actions stop depending on willpower and start relying on identity. Another powerful technique is interrupting the negotiation immediately. The moment your mind says, "Just skip it, take action within 5 seconds," this small window disrupts the negotiation process and trains your brain to respond with movement instead of doubt. The faster you act, the weaker the hesitation becomes. Over time, this builds mental strength, real mental strength, not the kind that comes from motivation, but the kind forged through decisive action. You must also replace negotiation with intention. Every morning, ask yourself one simple question. What is the one action I must complete today to honor my future? When you approach your day with intention, the negotiation becomes quieter because your purpose becomes louder. Purpose cuts through doubt. Purpose eliminates excuses. Purpose sharpens your focus. Finally, remind yourself that each time you refuse to negotiate with your excuses, you win a battle that strengthens your consistency. You prove to yourself that you are in control, not your comfort, not your hesitation, not your fear. And when you master this inner battlefield, daily goals stop feeling like obligations and start feeling like a declaration of who you are becoming. One of the most powerful ways to stay consistent with your daily goals is learning how to rebuild yourself quickly after setbacks. Most people don't lose consistency because they lack discipline. They lose it because they don't know how to recover when life interrupts their flow. A single missed day turns into 3. One moment of overwhelm becomes a week of avoidance. And before they even realize it, the momentum they worked so hard to build has disappeared. Consistency isn't about never falling. It's about learning how to rise faster each time you do. When you master the art of recovery, setbacks stop being dead ends and start becoming detours you navigate with strength. The first step in mastering recovery is eliminating guilt. Guilt is one of the most destructive emotions when it comes to long-term progress. It convinces you that missing a day means you've failed, that you're starting over from zero, that you're not capable of staying committed. But guilt is a lie. Missing a day does not erase your progress. It only tests your ability to return. Progress is never lost, only momentum is. And momentum can always be rebuilt through one action right now. The second step is creating a reset ritual. This is a simple action that signals to your brain that you are back on track. It could be writing down your goals again, cleaning your workspace, going for a 5-minute walk, or journaling a single sentence. I am starting again. These rituals anchor you, grounding your mind and reconnecting you to your intention. They prevent you from spiraling into self-doubt and instead redirect your energy toward progress. You must also learn to shrink your restart. When people try to bounce back, they often attempt to do too much at once. They try to make up for lost time with massive effort, and that overwhelming pressure makes them quit again. The secret is to restart small, smaller than you think. If you missed a week at the gym, begin with a 10-minute workout. If you stopped reading, read 1 page. Small restarts rebuild confidence, and confidence rebuilds momentum. Another essential part of recovery is reflection, not self-judgment reflection. Ask yourself, what pulled me off track? What can I adjust so this doesn't happen again? Reflection turns setbacks into teachers. It transforms your patterns into lessons. It strengthens your ability to handle future challenges with more clarity and less emotional resistance. Finally, remember this truth. The people who stay consistent are not the ones who never fall, they are the ones who return faster. Every comeback makes you stronger. Every restart builds resilience. And every time you rise again, you become someone who cannot be stopped by setbacks, delays, or disruptions. You become someone who finishes what they start. Consistency becomes unstoppable when you embrace the power of identity over outcomes. Most people approach daily goals with a focus on results. I want to lose weight. I want to finish this project. I want to be productive today. And when the results don't appear quickly, motivation fades and consistency collapses. But true consistency is not about chasing results. It's about becoming the type of person who naturally takes the actions that lead to those results. When your identity aligns with your actions, the process becomes effortless because you are no longer trying to force behavior. You are simply being who you are. Start by defining the identity you want to adopt. Ask yourself, who do I need to become to achieve these goals? Not what to do, but who to be. The answer might be, I am a disciplined person. I am someone who shows up no matter what, or I am committed to growth every single day. Once this identity is clear, every action becomes a reflection of that truth. Skipping a step no longer feels minor, it feels misaligned. Showing up, even in small ways, becomes a statement of integrity. Another crucial step is layering habits around that identity. Identity-driven consistency works because your habits reinforce who you are. If your identity is a healthy person, you naturally make choices like preparing meals, exercising, and sleeping well. These choices no longer require debate. They flow from the self-image you have committed to. Habits become the proof of your identity, and the proof strengthens the identity in return. Accountability plays a subtle but vital role in identity-based consistency, not as pressure, but as reinforcement. When you commit publicly, track progress, or share your journey, it creates alignment between how you see yourself and how others see you. This alignment builds internal consistency because you begin to respect the identity you've chosen. And respecting your own identity is non-negotiable. Finally, understand that identity is strengthened through repetition, not perfection. Each day you show up, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. Miss a day and it's just one vote. It doesn't erase your pattern. Over time, these votes compound. Actions become automatic, discipline becomes effortless, and consistency transforms from an act into a natural state of being. By living through identity, daily goals stop feeling like obligations and start feeling like an inevitable extension of who you already are becoming. The final key to staying consistent is mastering the long game, understanding that meaningful change is the result of patience, persistence, and the relentless accumulation of small actions over time. Most people fail because they expect instant results, and when results don't appear quickly, they give up. But consistency is not about immediate gratification. It is about compounding effort. Every action you take today is a seed planted for tomorrow. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take months or years, but all of them contribute to the person you will become. To commit to the long game, you must shift your mindset from short-term outcomes to long-term identity. Focus on showing up daily rather than obsessing over immediate results. Each completed task, each small win, each moment you honor your commitments, reinforces the story you are telling yourself about who you are. Over time, this story becomes undeniable. Your actions and your identity merge. Success is no longer a distant goal. It becomes a natural extension of your daily choices. Another critical aspect of the long game is patience with the process. Growth is rarely linear. You will encounter plateaus, unexpected setbacks, and moments of doubt. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is the ability to continue in the face of these challenges. Remember, progress accumulates silently. The effort you put in today may not pay off immediately, but it compounds silently behind the scenes, creating momentum that will eventually become unstoppable. Accountability and reflection remain vital over the long term. Regularly assess your progress, celebrate small wins, and adjust your approach without judgment. Reflection ensures that your actions remain aligned with your goals and your evolving identity. Accountability, whether internal or external, keeps your commitment visible and reinforces the habit of showing up even when the journey feels long. Finally, embrace the truth that consistency is the ultimate expression of self-respect. Every time you follow through, you're declaring to yourself that your goals, your growth, and your future matter. You're choosing discipline over comfort, action over hesitation, and persistence over doubt. And when you practice this every single day, even through fatigue, setbacks, and distraction, consistency becomes unstoppable. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. This is the power of the long game: patient, deliberate, unwavering, and identity-driven. Commit to it, and the version of yourself you aspire to will not just appear, it will become inevitable. Daily goals are no longer a struggle. They are a reflection of the person you have become, built one deliberate action at a time.